Welcome to English Podcast. Subscribe our channel for more update.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into something pretty major, moving to a whole new city.
Yeah, but not just the moving boxes side of things. We're looking at it through the eyes of someone also learning the language, English in this case.
Exactly. We've been listening to this really great podcast episode, Real Talk, Daily Life English for B1 Learners.
Episode 1, it's called Moving to a New City. Features a chat between Emma, she's an English teacher, and Jake. He'd just moved to Manchester from Spain.
Right. And our mission here really is to pull apart Jake's story a bit. Find those, key moments, the relatable bits, the actual hurdles he faced.
It's kind of a shortcut, isn't it, to understanding what it's really like settling in somewhere new, especially with that added layer of language learning.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Jake's situation, what was the setup?
Well, he came from a smaller town in Spain, moved to Manchester, big city, for a job opportunity, but also, crucially, he wanted to get better at English.
So, two big drivers there, work and personal development.
Definitely. A major life change.
And what about his first impressions? Did Manchester live up to expectations or stereotypes?
Well, he mentioned the weather straight away. Colder, rainy.
No surprise there for Manchester.
Not really. But importantly, he also said people were friendly, and the city itself felt really vibrant, alive.
That mix is so common, isn't it? The things you expect, like maybe the rain, and then the pleasant surprises, like the vibe of the people.
Exactly. And that initial adjustment phase, feeling at a new place,
Yeah.
that's something pretty much anyone who's moved can relate to, I think.
Yeah, totally. Even without the language aspect, just finding your feet somewhere new, it connects you to his story straight away. Okay, but let's get into the nitty-gritty, the practical challenges. What did Jake find toughest at the start?
He listed a few key things. Finding a flat, which is huge. Getting his head around the public transport system.
Right.
Understanding how renting works there, the whole process. And even just, opening a bank account. Basic stuff.
But stuff that suddenly becomes way harder in a new place with a different language. Why is finding a flat, for example, so much more complex?
Well, it's not just looking online, is it? You've got lease agreements, legal terms you might not know. You need to explain what you need, understand the agent.
All in English, potentially quite formal English too.
Exactly. Plus, the actual way renting works might be different culturally from Spain. Different expectations, different procedures. It adds layers of difficulty.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the system, not just the words. So how did he cope? How did Jake manage these things?
He was pretty proactive, actually. He joined some local Facebook groups, the kind, full of local tips and people asking questions.
Smart move. Real on-the-ground advice.
Yeah. And he also reached out to his colleagues at his new job. That seemed really important.
Asking for help, basically.
Yes. He gave this specific example. A colleague actually helped him register with a doctor. Navigating that kind of admin, having someone local guide you is massive.
That's such a key takeaway, isn't it? Don't be afraid to ask. Use those local resources, online or in person. It can make all the difference with those practical headaches.
Absolutely. It's about tapping into that local knowledge.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit to the language learning itself. His job sounds like built-in immersion, right? Software developer, English-speaking team.
Oh, definitely. That's like the gold standard for language practice. Using it every day in a real context for work.
Yeah.
You can't beat that for progress.
But it wasn't all smooth sailing, language-wise. He still found things tricky.
Yeah, he did. He mentioned understanding when people speak really quickly, those fast responses and conversations. That can be overwhelming when you're still processing.
I can imagine trying to keep up.
And the other big one, being afraid of making grammar mistakes. That classic learner fear.
Ah, yes. The perfectionism trap. Why do you think that fear is so common?
Well, nobody likes to feel like they sound silly, right? Or worry about being misunderstood. But Emma, the teacher on the podcast, she made a great point.
What was that?
That mistakes are totally normal. Expected, even. The main thing is just communicating, getting your message across. Most native speakers are pretty understanding.
That's really important to remember. Communication over perfection.
Exactly.
And Jake didn't just rely on work, did he? He was doing other things to improve his English, too.
No, he was quite active. He said he listened to podcasts. I actually mentioned the very podcast he was on, which is quite neat.
Ah, good plug for them.
And he also joined a conversation club.
Oh, interesting. Why are things like that, podcasts, conversation clubs, so helpful when you're living in the country?
Well, podcasts expose you to, like, natural spoken English, different accents, idioms, how people really talk, not just textbook stuff. And conversation clubs. They're brilliant for just talking, practicing speaking in a relaxed setting, building confidence, maybe getting gentle corrections, and meeting people too.
So it's about getting active exposure outside of just, say, work or formal lessons.
Yeah, engaging with the language in different ways, it all adds up.
Okay, what about cultural stuff? Did anything surprise Jake about life in Manchester beyond the language?
Yes. He mentioned how polite people seemed, specifically how often people say sorry.
Ah, the British sorry. It does get used a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. And what's interesting, and presumably Emma explained this, is that it doesn't always mean I apologize for doing something wrong.
Right. It can be more like, excuse me, or just acknowledging someone's there, or a bit of empathy.
Exactly that. It's a bit of a social lubricant, almost. Understanding that nuance helps you navigate social situations much better, stops you misinterpreting things.
It shows there's so much more to settling in than just vocabulary, isn't there? It's the unspoken rules, the cultural habits.
Definitely.
Now, adjusting is one thing, but missing home is another. Did Jake talk about that? What did he miss from Spain?
He did. Two big things. The food and the sunshine.
Can't blame him there. Very understandable things to miss.
Yeah. And they also touched on another cultural difference, meal times. Dinner is much later in Spain, like 9 or 10 p.m. sometimes.
Whereas in the UK, it's more like 6 or 7.
Right. Quite a shift in the daily rhythm. He talked about getting used to that earlier dinner time.
Did he manage? Okay.
Seems so. And he even mentioned an unexpected positive adaptation. He'd started liking tea with milk.
Huh. Becoming institutionalized. That's a lovely little detail.
It is, isn't it? It kind of shows that while you miss parts of home, you also find new things to enjoy, new habits form, you integrate things.
It's that balance, finding ways to embrace the new while still valuing where you came from.
Precisely.
So, wrapping up his experience, did Jake offer any final advice? For other people thinking of moving, maybe learning English too?
He did. His main advice was pretty clear and simple, actually.
Go on.
Don't be afraid to talk to people. Just start conversations. And secondly, actively join things, local groups, clubs, activities. Get involved.
Sounds straightforward, but powerful advice. Why is that so effective?
Well, it tackles both things at once, doesn't it? Talking to people is direct language practice, obviously. And joining groups helps you build a social network, find friends, get that support system.
And it makes you feel less like an outsider, more part of the community.
Exactly. It speeds up the whole process of feeling settled and learning the language because you're using it in real life with real people. Active participation.
So, if we boil Jake's story down, what are the main takeaways for someone listening?
Well, first off, those initial struggles, finding your way, dealing with admin, the practical stuff that's normal, everyone goes through it, especially with the language barrier.
Okay. Don't panic if it feels hard at first.
Right. Second, asking for help is key. Use colleagues, online groups, whatever resources you can find. Don't try to do it all alone.
Makes sense.
Third, really engage with the language and the culture. Listen, speak, join things, be curious. Don't just stick to your own bubble.
Immerse yourself actively.
Yes. And finally, adaptation does happen. You might miss home, but you'll likely find new things you enjoy too, like Jake and his tea with milk. It's possible to feel at home in a new place.
That's a really positive note. So thinking about all this, maybe a final thought for you, the listener.
Yeah, reflect on a time perhaps you had to adapt to something new. Maybe not a city, maybe a new job, a new hobby, anything where you had to kind of immerse yourself.
What were the challenges that maybe surprised you? And what were the rewards you didn't expect?
How does Jake's experience finding his way in Manchester, learning English, discovering tea, How does that resonate with those bigger ideas of adapting, learning, and maybe finding unexpected positives in new situations in your own life? Something to think about.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different, exploring a conversation rather than, dense articles. We're looking at an episode from the Real English Conversations podcast.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much you can pull from just one conversation about learning a language. It really gives you a window into the whole process.
Exactly. So this one features Emma, she's a native English speaker, and Carlos, who's from Spain. He's described as a B1 level learner.
Right, B1. So basically, he can get the main points, handle familiar topics, express himself simply. It's quite a relatable level for many people, I think.
Definitely. So whether you're learning a language yourself or maybe you're just interested in how it all works, we think Carlos's story will, hit home.
And our goal here really is to kind of trace his journey. What motivates him? What challenges does he face? What strategies is he using? And, what's the payoff for him?
Okay, let's unpack this then. So right at the start, Carlos says his main reasons for learning English are travel and working with people from other countries.
Yeah, very practical reasons. And pretty common these days, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It reflects that global aspect of English.
Absolutely. It's about wanting broader experiences, more opportunities, both personally and for work.
Exactly. And you might hear echoes of your own reasons in that, if you're learning a language, it's often tied to growth.
For sure. Now, he also talked a bit about traveling. He mentioned good trips to Portugal and France.
Okay.
But it was his first time in London that really stood out, it seems. He talked about museums, the British Museum specifically,
Yes.
walking near the Thames. And surprisingly, he said the food was much better than he expected.
Oh, interesting. Yet London's food scene often surprises people. It challenges that old stereotype, doesn't it?
It does. He mentioned trying fish and chips, the classic,
Of course.
but also Indian curry. He noted how popular Indian food is in the UK.
Right. And that's a great point about, cultural exchange and how immigration really shapes a place. Even its food. It's not just fish and chips anymore, is it?
Not at all. And those specific details, they make it real. He also mentioned noticing how much tea people drink.
Mm-hmm. Key culture.
And the way British people say sorry constantly, even like bumping into a chair or something.
Yes. That automatic sorry.
It's funny how those little cultural quirks stand out, isn't it?
It really is.
Just shows that learning a language isn't only about words and grammar. It's understanding the whole culture, the little social habits too.
Definitely. Okay, shifting gears a bit.
Yeah.
His job. He's a graphic designer.
Right.
Designing websites, logos, mostly for small businesses. And he has online meetings in English.
So he's using the language for work directly.
Yes. And he works remotely, which he said has its upsides, flexibility.
Sure.
But also downsides, like potentially feeling a bit isolated. That's a very modern issue, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That tension between connection through technology and, actual human connection. It's tricky.
So how does he manage? He mentioned sticking to a routine.
Structure. Yes. Getting up at the same time, starting work, taking a walk at lunch, things like that to stay motivated.
That's really practical advice for anyone working remotely, actually. Language learning aside, that routine is key.
It really is. Okay, so what about his actual language learning strategies? How's he actively improving?
Well, he mentioned listening to podcasts.
Including the one he was on.
Yes. And watching TV series with subtitles.
Which ones did he say? Stranger Things and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He said that one was funny and easier to follow.
Okay, yeah. Those are both really solid strategies. Podcasts are great for natural rhythm, intonation, and TV with subtitles that gives you both the sound and the text. Helps vocabulary stick.
And Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that's interesting. Humor often needs quite subtle understanding, so if he's getting that, it's a good sign.
Right. And he also practices speaking every week. He has an online language partner.
Crucial. That active practice, actually using the language. You can absorb a lot, but you have to produce it too.
Exactly. Speaking it. Yeah. And that's often the scary part for learners, isn't it? There's a speaking. Worried about mistakes.
Totally.
Yeah.
But it's where the real progress happens.
Absolutely. You have to push through that fear.
He also finds ways to use his hobbies, which I thought was clever. He likes cooking.
Okay.
Spanish food, obviously. But he also tries new recipes from, like, English YouTube channels.
Oh, that's brilliant. Making it part of everyday life.
Yeah. And he plays guitar, so he learns English songs to practice pronunciation.
Fantastic. Combining passions. Cooking gives you food vocabulary, instructions. Music helps with rhythm, flow, pronunciation. Though he did mention struggling with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well, yeah. That one's quite a challenge. Fast, unusual words.
Definitely a linguistic workout, that song. But fun. It makes learning less of a chore.
So, looking ahead, what are his goals? He's aiming for fluency, obviously. And he's thinking about maybe moving abroad for a year or two. Canada or Ireland?
Interesting choices. There.
He mentioned reasons like, well, they're English-speaking, peaceful, nice scenery, friendly people.
Right, those common positive perceptions.
Yeah.
It gives him a clear goal to work towards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A reason to really immerse himself.
And he wants to grow his design business too, so quite ambitious.
Definitely. That internal drive is so important for sticking with language learning.
But he was honest about the challenges too. He said speaking fluently is still the biggest hurdle for him.
Yeah.
That thing where you understand more than you can say, and sometimes words just disappear when you need them.
Oh, absolutely. That gap between receptive skills like listening and reading and productive skills like speaking, it's completely normal. That frustration of knowing a word is in there, but you can't quite grab it.
We've all been there, I think, in some context.
For sure. But importantly, he also said his confidence has grown over time, and he knows it's okay to make mistakes.
Yes, which leads perfectly into his advice for other learners, basically. Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid to speak.
Right. Make mistakes, laugh about them, learn from them, enjoy it all. Music, movies, talking to people. He stressed that it's about communication, fundamentally, not just grammar rules.
That's such valuable advice. Seriously. Shifting the focus from perfection, which is impossible anyway, to just connecting with people.
Exactly.
Embracing mistakes as, just part of learning. That's how you overcome the fear and actually get fluent.
So, wrapping up Carlos's journey, we saw clear motivations driving him travel, work.
Practical global motivations.
We saw his positive encounters with the culture, even the surprising bits like the food in London.
Right, and those cultural observations about tea and saying sorry.
We looked at his strategies for remote work routine and for active language learning, like podcasts, TV, language partners.
Yeah, the listening, the watching, and importantly, the speaking practice.
And how he weaves in his hobbies, cooking and music, making it enjoyable.
That integration is key. Plus, his future goals, aiming for fluency, maybe moving abroad, growing his business, balanced with that honest take on the challenges, like speaking fluency.
It's a very relatable picture, isn't it? That feeling of understanding more than you can say.
Very relatable. And his final advice about just going for it, embracing mistakes, focusing on communication, that's gold.
Absolutely. So for you listening, maybe you're learning English, maybe it's another language, or really any new skill.
Right.
Carlos's story really shows that having clear reasons, actively engaging, not being afraid to mess up, and finding joy in it, those are the things that really matter.
Definitely. Which brings us to maybe a final thought for you to chew on. How does embracing challenges, even the unexpected cultural bits you discover when learning something new, like Carlos finding great Indian food in London, how does that actually broaden your own view of the world?
Yeah.
How does it connect you in ways you might not have expected just by engaging with something outside your usual comfort zone?